there we go.
All right, Sam Tomlinson, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. For background, for those who are tuning in, Sam has a background in business, data, and finance, and runs an agency. I hope I'm not going to butcher the name, Warshavsky.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Sweet.
Nailed it.
All right. But yeah, can you maybe start out by just expanding a little bit? I mean, business data and finance sounds like a really interesting and powerful combination for agency. So yeah.
Yeah. So I actually started my career pretty far away from the traditional agency world. So I worked for a real estate consulting firm. So we specialized in helping with, roughly 50 to $500 million transactions. So very different world, very much living in spreadsheets and financial models and all of the intricacies that go into, pretty substantial projects. So my interface with agencies was usually on the other side of the table, representing the community that was looking to scale up or, the project that was looking to advertise. And that was my first exposure to it. I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then, eventually you can only work for developers for so long. It is a very, it's a brutal business, which, is fine. But eventually pivoted over and was like, I want to do something different. The founder of our agency had gone to the same undergraduate college as I did, and reached out and was like, hey, I'm looking for somebody that can do this on the digital marketing side. We recognize this is a really important thing. We need some help building it out. I think you can know somebody. I'll probably figure this out. It's the same. We're still adding stuff up. We just add up different stuff.
Right.
So that's where that came in. But yeah, my formal training was in finance and economics. And then my master's is in finance as well. So, that's where the business and the analytics piece comes in. Obviously, statistics goes hand in hand with all of that. And then pivoted over to this. So
nice. Well, can you back up
for a decade?
Yeah. Can you back up a little bit and talk a little bit about kind of the start of the agency and maybe what shaped kind of the early direction? Maybe give a little bit of background on Warshavsky too.
Yeah. So Warshavsky was founded in 1996 by David Warshavsky. He remains actively involved in the business. So he was worked at Edelman, worked at Dillon Schneider, worked at some of the larger agencies in New York. And I think it would be a fair justification for him to say that he was not thrilled with how those agencies operated and didn't like a number of things about their business model, from how they build time to how they interacted with clients to the level of care and the quality of the team that was put on various accounts. And said, this doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't align with my personal values. And if I were on the other side of the table, this is not what I would want to work with. Like, I would want to work with a senior team. I would want to work with people who are going to put the right person on the account, not the person with the highest billable rate. Just basic things like that. And said, what? Let's do something different. Let's build the agency that we want. And that has really been the guiding ethos ever since, which is, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the client. All of our leadership team invests in other businesses. We own other businesses. Let's build the agency that we would want to work with on the other side of the table.
Right.
And let's do the things that we would want as clients. Let's just that's our agency. That's the agency that we should build, is the agency that we would want to work with.
Yeah. There's no better way to understand or empathize with your client than to own some businesses yourselves, to basically have some skin in the game, from the other side.
100%. And that was really the impetus. And that's been the thing that we've carried forward, I would say, for, as long as I've been here. And from our COO, Shana, has been here for 26 years. So she was employee number one, never left. So she can attest and has shared many, many times that that's been the ethos from the very beginning, is that, we're going to build the agency that we would want to work with. And we're going to do the things that we would want to do. And candidly, I would say every evolution that we've gone through. So when they started, it was mostly a PR and branding shop. But, they quickly realized, hey, one of the challenges that we're running into from an agency standpoint, one of the things our clients are sharing with us is that when you have 8 different agencies, it's really difficult to manage and it becomes a really big headache. Yeah. And things get lost in translation. The client ends up paying 5 times for an account manager, right? Each agency has their own account manager. So you're paying 5 times for that, and you're paying 5 times for this, and you're paying 5 times for that, all for a product that's not seamless and it doesn't feel right to the customer. And as a result, the brand suffers. So let's just bring more things in-house before that was in vogue. And great. And then, we saw that a lot of times there were challenges with, junior team members. I can personally attest to the fact, like when I was on the other side of the table, there was nothing more frustrating to me than sitting across the table from somebody and being like, you never did this before, did you, friend? Because you're learning on our dime. Like we're basically paying for your education right now in the form of an agency fee. Like that's not right. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're working with experts.
Right. So we're like, okay, well, how do we solve that from an agency standpoint? Well, we only hire senior people. So our agency is 75 to 80% senior people, defined as people with more than 5 years of experience. And we do have junior people, but they're not the people that we actually put on accounts, right? Like we train them ourselves. We're not going to, that's our responsibility to do that, to make sure that, they're trained and nurtured and developed and given the skills they need to be a successful person, not throwing them into the wolves and hoping our client's going to pay for their training. That's not the right way to do it. So I would say that's really been the guiding ethos, as far back as we can go, is every time we look at something, we're like, well, what would we want? Okay. What is right for the client? Okay. Let's do that.
That makes a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense, I think, when you say it. But I think as somebody who's done it for the last decade, I can tell you sometimes it's hard. Because sometimes you're like, we can make more money doing that, but it's not the right thing to do. And
but it ends up, I think, working out better in the long run. If you make the choice that's like doing right by your client rather than doing right by your bank account.
100%. And I never changed that.
Awesome. Well, so I guess, that talks about kind of like the direction you went. What sort of challenges, maybe what were the biggest challenges that you ran into in the early days? And what are some of the ways that you've overcome those over the years?
I would say there's a number. I think if you're not learning, you're not really growing, are you? So every challenge is a growth opportunity. But I mean, the big ones are, when I started, we were really small. We were about 10 people. We're now 40. So it's pretty substantial growth. And the first big challenge, I didn't honestly believe it at first, but I had talked to a guy named Dan Golden at a conference right when I started. And he said, the rule of 1 in 3 is a thing you're gonna learn. I was like, okay, what is that? And he's like, every time you go from a number that starts with a 1 to a number that starts with a 3, everything breaks in that process. So if you go from 1 person to 3 people, everything breaks. If you go from 3 people to 10 people, everything breaks. If you go from 10 to 30, everything breaks. And it always breaks and it always repeats. And it's the hardest thing in the world because you just want to go back to where you were before when things worked. But the nature of growth is that there is disruption and there is breakage. So for me, the big challenge was, how do you handle this? And it's, when we first started, it was like, okay, well, how do you build up the systems, right? How do you build up the process? How do you build up the institutional knowledge for everybody on the team? That was brutal. I mean, it came down to, for us, good project management systems, really thorough documentation. We started doing looms and videos very early on to document exactly what we would do. We invested a ton in our training programs, but those were really hard things to do because, like, I'm sure and many people who are listening to this probably know, like, whenever you're taking time out of the workday to train somebody, well, that's time that they aren't working on client projects, right? That's a very real financial hit to the agency to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's the right thing to do. So you're investing in your people and you're hoping those people stay long enough for you to recoup that investment and also turn a profit on it. But it's a difficult thing to do. That was one. Number two, obviously, as you get more clients, even with good vetting and a diligent intake process, you get clients that aren't the right fit for your team. And we were actually just talking about this on a PPC chat discussion yesterday. But like firing clients is a real thing that you have to do. And it's a really hard thing, especially when you first start. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do was, fire your first client. You're like, okay, it's terrifying because you're saying no to a client and you're saying no to revenue. And, you go from, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. No, but and especially like, if you have payroll and things like that you're responsible for, you're like, okay, I'm taking a risk here. I hope it's the right risk for the culture and the health of the agency overall, which should, help over the long run. But it's kind of another example of that short versus long-term sort of thinking where, yeah, there's maybe going to be a short-term downside, but maybe a long-term upside.
Yeah, 100%. That was one. I think the other one was also just figuring out the right way to grow the agency, and like we made lots of mistakes there, right? When we were smaller, we did a ton of growth, just referrals and word of mouth and networking. Like local networking was enough because you're a 10, 20 person agency. You don't need to really have a marketing engine for your agency. So there's kind of like a the cobbler's kid situation, right? Like
right.
You're doing great marketing for other clients, but you've never had to do it for yourself. But then, I started where I noticed it was like we got about 20 people. We started to really get to that point with about, 25 clients kind of on the roster. Mm-hmm. That's when I felt it. I was like, okay, we got to figure out, we have to do for ourselves what we do for others. We have to figure out, because at this point, you hit that ceiling where, okay, this is as far as our networking can take us. And that's where we started having to diversify and think about, okay, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to position ourselves as leaders? How are we going to, build our own credibility and our own thought leadership and, translate that into business? And that took some serious time and it took some serious effort. And like you said, it's a process, but it was a real challenge to realign resources internally and to really start and to balance that. Because, I would say as a small agency, the huge benefit is that you have people just coming to you because you have, a stable of really happy, really thrilled clients that just love you and they bring people to you, and it's great, but that only goes so far. And then
it can kind of stall out, or you're dependent on your happy clients, but it's like, that's not really predictable. And
correct. It's not predictable, and it's not. And sometimes, sometimes, even good, happy clients, have unfortunate situations, or, they do whatever. Like, we've had, really thrilled clients who loved us very much. We did great work for them. They got acquired. Great. When that happened, it didn't matter how happy the previous CEO was. The previous CEO wasn't CEO anymore.
Yep.
And, the new ownership had their own existing relationships, and they had their own existing vendors, and they had their own existing processes. And, that's a case where, we created a ton of value for them, and they've been, to this day, they're friends and they're very close to us, but friendship and that doesn't, JP Morgan doesn't accept that.
Right.
So you gotta, like you said, you have to find more predictable revenue streams. You have to find more predictable client intake streams. You have to actually build a new business pipeline. You have to build a new business process. And that was,
a lot of times you have to build it before you need it too, which is kind of the hard thing. Cause you're like, you have to almost have that forethought to not be thinking, well, when I really feel this pain acutely, that's when I'll start. It's like, no, like it's one of those things that takes time to build. And so if you're not thinking ahead, then it could backfire on you. You'll have 100%. Like a down year or something like that because you haven't been investing in it.
Yeah. One of my mentors told me the best time you never shop when you're hungry, you don't hunt when you're hungry, and you do it both for the same reason.
Yeah, well, that's so
Because
true.
it leads to bad decisions.
Yep. Well, I guess relating to um, standing out, bringing in new business, things like that. How do you think about making the agency stand out in like a crowded market, and then really communicating that to potential clients?
Yeah. I would say I think about it in kind of three, like it's kind of three legs of a stool, right? The first leg for us has always been thought leadership. We want to be known as experts in our field. We're a boutique agency. We charge more than what I would say, a typical agency does, but we also deliver outsized value. And a huge portion of that, like anything, is showing that value and demonstrating and providing value before. So for us, the core parts of thought leadership that we've invested in are speaking opportunities. We've invested really heavily in content production, and we've invested really heavily in our case study game, and really building out robust, really high quality case studies. Because for many of the clients that we saw come in, their first question was like, well, okay, what have you done for somebody in our industry or in our space, or show us the results. So for us, we're like, okay, great, we can speak at conferences, we can share what we know. We can actually create really good content around what's happening in the areas where we operate, and we can show you how we've translated those things into results for other people. That was the first, I think, big leg of the school, is we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Right. The second piece is you have to back it up, right? If you're going out with essentially a value, a brand promise of expertise and credibility and trust, then you have to back it up. And that means building processes. That means, actually delivering for clients and keeping your clients happy. So, for me, a huge part of our new business and a huge part of, how we stand out in the market is just by being able to have a process that we can go to and show people, this is exactly how we do it. This is what we say we do. This is what we do, and they're the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to me, it is a superpower to just do what you say you will do.
Well, and it also, I think, when you have a process that you can share with them, even if it's not getting into the weeds of the process, if they can generally wrap their heads around the overall approach, like, if it can be simplified into 5 steps, it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of see how those 5 steps would take me from point A to point B where I need to be.
100%. And then the third part of that is, I would say kind of the sauce of it is, for us, we root everything in financial accountability and in actual financial KPIs. And we build every part of our process and every part of our engagement around that, right? A lot of agencies talk about impressions and clicks. I couldn't care less. We start our fraud engagements understanding, how does your business operate? How do you make money? How does money move through your organization? What needs to happen for those good things to happen? Where does money leave the organization? How does that work in terms of, what is we want to understand all of that first, because realistically, that's what we're going to ultimately be judged on. Whether or not a client ever says that is not material, because the underlying reality is you can either be a cost center or you can be a profit center. And the best way to be a profit center is to get as close to profit as possible.
Yep.
So, as we're talking to clients, it's not just that what we say, but they see it in the actions. They see it in the discovery meetings. They see it in the proposals. They see it in the forecasts. They see it in the dashboards. And for us, and when you start to talk about standing out, the unfortunate reality is most agencies don't do that. Most agencies don't operate on that playing field, and it creates a meaningful point of difference for us when we can say, we are business owners first. This is what we would want to see as a business owner. This is how we do show that to you.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the number of pitches I've been in where we brought out an example dashboard or brought out a forecast document that we've done. said, this is what you get. This is exactly how we operate. This is what you're going to see. This is how we're going to report. And they're just like, yes, that's what I need. No one else has shown me that. Send contract, please.
Yeah. Well, it's like you're getting closest to where the rubber meets the road, you know, like with their needs. And so if you're getting closer to the customer and their needs better than anybody else, you know, even if they have maybe a process that's just, you know, we just take every client through the same 3 steps. It's like, but what if you said, you know, your part of your process is like, well, we know how to ask the right questions that really get at like the numbers you're trying to move. And then we build around that. Like that's going to be much more powerful, much more personalized to them, and
100%.
honestly produce the best results in the end.
100%. And it's so much, I found it so much easier to get executive buy-in and to maintain that buy-in when you have those conversations. Because I mean, the number of meetings I've been in where like a CEO's eyes just glaze over when the agency brings up like their fancy deck talking about like impressions or clicks or reach or this or that, they just don't care. And we're like, look, here are the material drivers to success. Here's how we did that. Here is, you know, the actual campaign performance, but let's take a step back. Let's talk about business performance metrics. Let's talk about marketing efficiency ratio. Let's talk about profitability. Let's talk about contribution dollars derived from marketing. Let's talk about how we helped move your business forward and just how far we went and what we need to do next in order to get you to the next tier of growth. They light up because somebody is speaking their language.
Yeah.
And somebody sees like, okay, great. I understand that it's not just about top line. Like, you know, there's a joke, right? Anybody can make a top line number go up. There is zero magic in making a top line number go up. Anyone can do it. You can throw enough money at a problem to make the revenue number go up. But where the magic is can you understand how to grow the top line while making it drop to the bottom line? And right, like, I mean, literally Temu is losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Their top line number is going up. It is not hard to do.
Yeah.
You can spend enough money on advertising, you can make the top line number go up. But can you talk about how to make the bottom line number rise commensurately or more?
Yeah, the actual profit.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about contribution dollars because, you know, realistically, profit is kind of an elusive concept in the sense like, yeah, I can do this, but then you have fixed costs and you have debt service and you might have, you know, tax liabilities or, you know, whatever. At the end of the day, we look at revenue less all the costs associated with revenue. So COGS, cost of delivery, cost of service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's left? What is available to the business after all the costs of acquisition, delivery, and service are paid? Great. That's your contribution dollars. What you do with those, that's not a marketing or an advertising question. That's an executive decisions question.
Right.
No, if those are going to CapEx, cool. If those are going to, you know, distributions to shareholders, amazing. If those are going to pay overhead and salaries, delightful. Don't care. That's not our problem.
You just want to make sure that they're making like real revenue that is meaningful revenue for them.
Correct. Yeah. We're trying to make sure that the money that's coming in the door from our acquisition or retention efforts is sufficient to produce a return that justifies the investment you made up front.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, like ROI is the key thing with any engagement, with any agency.
100%. Unfortunately, I feel like that term has gotten so overused by agencies that talk about return on investment without understanding what it actually means.
Yeah, and the breadth of that. Yeah, it's like a finance term that it gets used willy-nilly in other contexts.
Yep. And like, you don't know that. Like, you're talking about like return. Like, no, that's not good. Like, I look at marketing as an investment, right? Like, you're putting dollars out there. You are taking a risk. It needs to return something that justifies that risk and is better than the return you could get by putting that money elsewhere. Because you know, every investment for every business is a zero-sum game. right? Every dollar I put in marketing is a dollar I can't put in product or R&D or customer service or ops or logistics. So
Just want
that
to make
money
sure
that I
you're
put in,
making good bets, basically.
right, 100%. So that money better come back with friends and more friends than if I put it in any of those other buckets.
Yeah.
And, part of our job as an agency, and one of the reasons that we, don't bill on a percentage of ad spend is because in some cases, I've gone to clients and said, look, this is the amount of money that we need. We need X thousands of dollars per month for advertising. Above that, we, at your current level and with your current inventory and with your current customer base, the incremental return isn't as good as if you put it into product or ops or logistics or inventory. You should put your money there because that's going to get you a higher return. And then, once you do that and you get to this next level, then yes, we will need more advertising dollars to help you scale. But beyond this point, diminishing returns are kicking in. There are better bets for this money. And candidly, I don't know of an agency that's going to be like, you know what, pay us less money.
Yeah.
I've also gone to clients. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I mean, and I think, in the few instances where that does happen, I think it does engender a lot of trust, which can be, goes back to that, like doing things that can be beneficial in the long run, maybe not as beneficial in the short term. But I know one thing, a client that I used to work with, they had a partnership with I think it was a PPC agency, and they did conversion optimization. But if like the website didn't really need optimized because they didn't have enough traffic, they'd say, you know what, you should go talk to our partner over here first. Like, I know you're coming here because you want to improve your conversion rates, but it's like, that's not your biggest problem right now. You need to focus on getting the right traffic at a good volume coming in. And then, if things are going well, but you want to get your conversion rate up after that, then yeah, please come back. Like, we'd be happy to help you, but we'd rather point you in the right direction for the problem that we think you're really experiencing right now, which is a traffic one, not a conversion one. And it worked both ways, because like if somebody was coming to the other agency and they're like, well, we're sending a whole bunch of qualified traffic to your site, but nobody's converting, and we look at your site and it's like, it's kind of a really clunky user experience. It's like, you should go talk to these guys and they'll make more of the traffic that we're sending over there actually turn into sales for you. So yeah. there's value again in doing the short-term hard thing, but the long-term right thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, and I'd be lying if I said we didn't see the impact of that, right? We have clients that come back to us. We have a client that's worked with us at 4 different companies.
Oh, wow.
Literally every time went to a new company, they called back and were like, hey, can we work together again? And
I mean, that's the best type of client to get.
It really is. It's incredible. But like you said, that level of trust is earned by doing the right thing for the client and their confidence in knowing that you will do the right thing for them.
Yeah, 100%. Well, awesome. Trying to think. I think next question would be like, how do you? I mean, we've covered this a little bit tangentially, but how do you manage expectations and maintain like strong relationships with your clients?
Sure. I mean, I would say managing expectations for us has a quantitative and a qualitative component. So the quantitative component is we build forecasts for our clients. We build actual documents, strategies that have KPIs and numbers, and we don't do categorical. We do more Bayesian approaches. So we show you a range of outcomes because candidly, luck plays a role in marketing. Like, I'm sorry if other marketers take offense to that, but the reality is sometimes you just get lucky.
Yeah.
Like, it happens. Taylor Swift wears your thing to a game. Congratulations. You're going to have a great sales month. And you know what, marketer? It had nothing to do with you.
Yep.
Like, it's okay to get lucky and it's okay to get unlucky. Sometimes, like, I've had clients where every number was great, right up until it was signed in December. And I'm like, what do you want from me, man? Like, the leads were qualified. Yes. They talked to sales. Yes. They had the budget. Yes. They were ready to go. Yes. They didn't sign in December. I'm like, well, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
There was Christmas, there was Hanukkah, there was Kwanzaa, there was New Year's, and people didn't want to be here for the end of it. It was a year, things happened. What happened in January? Record-setting month.
Yeah.
Does that mean that we didn't do our jobs in December? No, 100% it doesn't. It means we got unlucky. We had other things in the world happened other than your business.
Yeah.
So that's why we look at, both a range of outcomes as well as, a more holistic approach.
Like seasonality and
correct seasonality, but and just broader macroeconomic trends. Like, different retail business had an absolutely horrific month when the Fed raised rates. Wonder why? Like, when your primary customer is new home buyers and the Fed starts hiking,
yeah, you're going to see a decline.
Like, that's what happens, and that's okay. But, obviously we adjust spend down, you focus more on efficiency, you pivot, you do other things. But, fundamentally, in that case, you get unlucky. And then again, we've got other clients where it's like a celebrity wears their thing and we have boomer months. Great. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, I was such a good marketer for that. No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was my normal market. We were excellent. We did our jobs, but that huge incremental spike didn't happen because of or entirely because of what we did, right? We had the foundations in place, take advantage of it. We had the campaigns right. Those things contributed 100%, but the catalyst for that was something outside of our control. And I firmly believe that you have to be intellectually honest with clients and be like, look, there are times when if you make a mistake, yeah, it's a problem. But there are times also where you do everything right and for whatever reason, something doesn't work, and that's okay. But on the other side, there are times when you do everything right and something incredible happens, but that was catalyzed by something that was out of your control.
Yeah, that's like the what was it? The gal who had her Stanley cup that was in like the burned out car, and she pulled it out and like shook that the ice was still cold inside of it, and it's like that turned into a huge PR opportunity for Stanley, and they've taken it and run with it.
And and full credit to them. But at the end of the day, like, that initial catalyst though wasn't your agency and it wasn't your marketing. It was luck.
Yeah. Like you didn't, there wasn't anything you could do other than making a good product and
100%. You made your own luck by it.
Yep. Exactly.
But you couldn't, but you didn't time it. You didn't light her car on fire. I hope you didn't.
Right.
But I mean, I think that's a big part of it, right? Is the quantitative element, putting real numbers and setting real expectations and showing the client not just what the end goal is, but what the contributing numbers are to that. So, like for some of our lead gen clients, it's like, hey, look, this is how many leads we want to get. This is our lead to MQL conversion target. This is our MQL to SQL conversion target. This is our SQL to closed won target. And you can show them this whole pipeline and be like, look, this not only shows you what you can reasonably expect, but it also gives us a diagnostic tool to see if something isn't going well. We don't have to wait until the end of the year to come back and be like, oh, we didn't win enough business this year. We can come to you and say, hey, look, lead numbers look good. MQLs look good. SQLs look good, but people aren't closing. So let's actually investigate that problem. Let's talk to the salespeople who are responsible. Let's figure out what's going on here. Is there something we can do earlier in the process? Is there just, is there broader economic uncertainty? Is there a hesitancy? Is there what's going on here to figure out why these otherwise qualified leads are not closing to wins at the rate that we would historically expect?
Right.
That's a really powerful conversation to have in terms of building a strong client relationship, because you're actually helping them identify what is the contributor, what is the driver to the result you're seeing, and how do we address it?
Yeah, you're actually saying, hey, I don't know all the answers. I'm going to help investigate them.
We're going to investigate, because at the end of the day, we don't have all the answers. No one does. And I think the best partners are the ones that help you ask the questions that you don't know. And
absolutely
figure, right? Because that's what we're all here for. And then in terms of the qualitative piece for us is, we're very clear and transparent about expectations. We over communicate. It is drilled into everybody, like over communicate. Even if you think they know, send an email, send an update, let people know that you are on top of it. Give them the confidence that says that they don't have to worry if we are on it, because we've already told them we are. We've communicated what you're going to get, when you're going to get it, and then do it. If you promise a client that we're going to do X by X, come hell or high water, we're going to do X by X. To me, that's a strong relationship right there, is just doing what you say you're going to do and being clear, honest, and transparent with people about how you're going to do it. If you can do that, there's not a secret. The magic is just doing it.
Yeah.
Every single day. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to kind of see if there were any like specific systems or tools that you found indispensable really at helping you run the agency.
So in terms of tools, I don't think there's anything that's like super indispensable. I mean, the one that I would say is probably closest to that is Loom, because I just think there's a ton of magic in being able to. I am not a meeting person. Let me start by saying that. And there are people who probably listen to this who are meeting people and meetings work for them. I hate meetings. I hate them.
I think a lot of people are in the same as you. Yeah.
I truly hate meetings. Like, number one, there's nothing more frustrating to me than being like, okay, well, what is the actual purpose of this? Like, people are just talking, and it's action in spite of activity. It's action for the sake of action instead of action in space for results. So, okay, I believe most meetings can be emails, and I believe most emails could probably be Looms.
I love it. Just kind of basically asynchronous communication where you're moving kind of the conversation forward, but it's not getting 8 people in a room to kind of have more of them be quiet. Yeah. And
to me, I've also found that so many meetings result in miscommunications, right? Like it genuinely boggles my mind how 8 people can sit in a room and walk out with 6 different ideas of what the actual end steps are.
Yeah.
The number of times I see that, even on client sides, like we're in a meeting with a client and people walk out of the meeting and they send it, I'm like, we had very different interpretations, friend.
Yeah.
To me, I was like, I want to eliminate as much of that as possible. So for me, Loom is great because it transcribes it. It's a video. It can be viewed asynchronously. It can move the conversation forward. People can stop it, replay it, do whatever they need to do in order to get the information and to ensure they are clear about it, but without the imposition that comes with it. So to me, that's a really valuable tool. Yeah. We use Asana as our project management tool. I think it's objectively very good. I wouldn't call it indispensable in the sense that like, nah. I just like, sure, there's Asana, there's Basecamp, there's Monday, there's 1,000 of them. They all kind of do the same. I think having a tool like that works for your team is amazing. Asana works for us. I don't have bad things to say about them. Our team did kind of get us into Slack. I hate Slack. I think Slack is a productivity killer. I have a whole thing on Slack. Sorry. If Slack's sponsored thing, I'm really sorry.
No, I totally get that. Well, shifting gears again a little bit maybe, but what strategies would you say have been most effective for growing the agency? I know you mentioned, doing good work and things like that, but maybe
like the actual marketing. Like, I would say, for us, it's been conferences and events have played a huge role, candidly. That's been huge for us. Number 2, the big strategy for us that actually worked was treating the agency like a client and making space for that, which it sounds really basic, but it was an adjustment for us. Was, we went so far as to add our agency to our client roster. We assigned an account manager to it. Like, we put ourselves first. We treated our agency just like a client. went through the same process, went through the same exercise, treated the agency like an ongoing client. That was huge
So
for
you're
us.
giving it the margin that you need,
Yes.
the time, all that.
And controlling the investment and being able to really see, because I think it's really easy to work on your business and to work in your business. It's really easy to work in your business and to not pay attention to how much time you're spending on these tasks and to just not have a coherent strategy and to not to really understand how much has gone into this. So by us, saying, you know what, we're going to treat it like a client. We have a person that's responsible for agency marketing. Great. We have, a set of campaigns that we're going to run. Great. We have a budget that we have allocated for this and actual KPIs. And there are, cost per op, cost per SQL, cost per close one for our outbound our paid advertising, right? There are benchmarks for what we want to get organically. It's a game changer for us because it allows us to control the investment in how much we're doing and also to see like if it's working, and if we're getting those results, then we can make an informed decision about whether or not to invest more or less.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of agencies that I talk to, they just don't even know. They're like, oh yeah, I do like some conference stuff and I do some new business stuff and we run a couple ad campaigns here and there, but they aren't sure they haven't treated it like a client. They treat it like an afterthought.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. I think just giving almost permission to yourself to treat it like a client. It's like you mentioned earlier, the cobbler's kids have no shoes sort of situation where it's like you're so focused on client work that it's like, well, there is also this really important client, that like everything falls apart if you have no new business. So it's like you got to be carving out at least enough time to be focusing on there too.
And I would say the third part of that, if I can, just is I learned to say no. At this point, we learned to say no to clients that just weren't a perfect fit for us. We learned, there was a time as we were growing where I'd be like, you know what, it's amazing to get a client. I just want to get the client in the door. I just want to win, 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 win. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm okay losing that. I'm okay saying no to that because every time, and it took me a long time to train myself like to think this way, but it's like every time I say yes to a client, I'm saying no to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And am I okay with that? And there are some clients where I 100% am okay with that because I'm like, you are a great client. You will make our team happy. You're a great partner to work with. It's going to be an amazing relationship. I'm happy to say yes to you.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other clients where I'm like, this could be fun for a minute and crazy for a long time.
Yeah.
The cost of bad clients is real. And it's not just a financial cost, it's a human capital cost, it's a team morale cost, it's a headache cost, it's a gray hair tax. And candidly, while I hope that when I turn gray, I look like Clooney, I don't think that's possible. So I'm trying to keep my hair as dark as possible, as long as possible.
Yeah. I think it's almost like the more you can do to define who the best fit folks are, and then so that you recognize them when they come in, you're like, oh, this is another one that has the potential to be a great fit moving forward. That's a really strong place to be in, making sure you have that defined up front so that you're not caught off guard and you don't end up with some of those problems you mentioned just by accident.
100%. I think it's okay to have some friction in the new client process. Like that's something I've come to, for a long time, I tried to make it as easy as possible. And now I'm like, you know what? It's okay to make them work a little bit. It's okay. I want to see we have an intake questionnaire for new clients. That's great. It's an immediate litmus test for me. Like if you won't take the time to fill out like a basic intake questionnaire to help our team, that tells me that you might not be a good partner long-term and you might not get us what we need to be successful later on. A very easy litmus test, right? Like just little bits of, I'm not saying like make them jump through hoops and chase you around and stuff, but like a little bit of friction in the intake process was very revealing, I think.
Yeah. How motivated are they basically?
it's how motivated they are, but it's also, do they respect you as a professional? Will they extend you? Because I mean, realistically, as an agency, we do rely on our clients to get us things, and we rely on our clients to provide, timely support and feedback and, input, targets, budgets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you can't even be bothered to give us that during the intake process, who boy,
Yeah.
We're gonna have a hard
time moving
we're gonna have a
forward.
hard time. Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's a good one.
Awesome. Well,
Right.
kind of bringing this in for our landing, I guess if you were giving advice to somebody else who is starting or who's running, maybe they have a smaller agency, maybe kind of below that 10-person mark that you mentioned earlier, what sort of advice would you give to them?
I think the first thing is, define what kind of agency you want to be. There are plenty of ways to make money in this business. But you have to be clear about what kind of agency you want to be. I mean, we've deliberately chosen to be an agency that puts our clients first, even to our own detriment, that tries to do the right thing. But you don't have to do that. Right? You can be a burn insurance shop and you make a lot of money. You can be a specialty shop and make a lot of money. There are plenty of ways to do it, but you have to be clear about it and honest with yourself about how you want to operate. I think a lot of agency owners try to do everything, and that just doesn't work. The second is, recognize that your most important asset is your people, and your second most important asset is your knowledge, and your third most important asset is your systems and process that you can bring, and the fourth is everything else that happens later, right?
Yeah.
So invest in your people, right? I would say if you're not willing to make those investments in people, it's really hard to make it. It's really hard to build an agency, because really agencies are people, and you have to have great people and treat them very well and overpay them. Like, overpay your best people. And if you're like, oh, I don't want to do it, I want a penny, you're probably not ready for this yet, friend.
Yeah. You have some sort of surprises. But
yeah.
Well,
then,
yeah.
I mean, make sure it's something you love. Because like agency life it's a full contact sport.
Yeah. I've been in multiple agencies, and that's definitely true. So
I mean, if you don't love it, then don't do this, man. There are other ways. There are other ways to make money in this world. You don't have to have an agency unless you love it.
Absolutely. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really insightful. I love a lot of the stuff that you had to say about. I think that one of the things that came up was, maybe making short-term decision or making decisions that are better for the long term and not necessarily for the short term. So, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah. My grandfather always told me it's a big world and it's a long life. Treat it accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
so,
actually, if there was anything, if there's anywhere you'd like to direct people to who are listening?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter at DigitalSamIM, LinkedIn, same thing. And then I write a newsletter every week on digital trends, which it's free. Just subscribe. It's samtomlinson.me/newsletter. Very awesome. Original, I know.
Well, thanks again for coming on. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Thank you.